Hi, this is Gina Brown. I'm sitting here with my friend Marty Sudgeest, who actually hosts a podcast and a Facebook called The Remade Man. So, Marty, welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast and what makes you the Remade Man?
All right. Thank you so much, Gina, for having me on your podcast. I do appreciate it. So, you've known me for a long time,
Yes.
and I have had a lot of success in my life in certain areas and failures in others. And in the area of relationships, I've had a number of failures, including a very painful divorce. So, when I got divorced, I went into sort of a depression, was drinking way too much and making choices that were not getting me out of that. And it wasn't until later that I did a lot of self development, a lot of personal development, really built my self awareness, and really learned the tools to get oneself out of a situation like that.
Mhm.
And I have made so much progress in my own personal life that I was like, you know what? I'm called to help other men get beyond the divorce and help them make positive changes and help them reimagine their lives, because it is, as painful as divorce is for everybody, it is also an opportunity to reset your life and to
Nice.
plan your future.
Nice. Now, how long have you been divorced?
It has been almost 13 years.
And at what point during your divorce did you decide I need to stop this self deprecating behavior and look to me to help me?
About 2 years in. So it was about 2 years of a pretty dark 2 years. And I wouldn't call it a lost 2 years, but I don't want other guys to have a similar lost 2 years. And so I coach them, I help them, I help them understand what they've been through, reframe things, set new goals, and chart a new course for a new, happy, and fulfilling life.
Now, as the remade man, how long do you think is the remade man a continuing education type of process, or do you think it's just a limited time that they come to the awareness that I'm better than this?
Well, for me, the remade man was a 13-year process.
Mhm.
And it still continues to this day because I am always going to be committed to personal development and personal growth. However, I have greatly condensed that, when working with men, I'm hoping to greatly condense that. I have a 12-week program that I guide them through, that I teach them a lot of the things that took me 13 years to learn myself.
So this 12-week program, is this something that they can find online? Is it something that they're going to physically go through? Go to a website or a place, a location where they can learn how to remake themselves?
Yes. So on my website, theremademan.com, that's the starting point. And that's the starting point. The 12-week program is divided into two halves. The first half is, I call that positive intelligence. And that is a program I guide them through, and it involves the use of an app. And then the second 6 weeks is working through my course and one-on-one with me.
Now, as the remade man, what do you think would be some key points of interest for these men?
So, all right, when guys get divorced, guys are way less likely to talk about things, to open up. We're men, we're strong, we're tough. We'll figure it out. It might take us 13 years,
Yes.
but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
All right. And so that's the main idea behind the program, is that don't try to slog through this yourself and figure it out yourself. There's a very much accelerated way to go through it. But guys are going to be facing potentially a lot of different issues,
Mhm.
right? And it could be loneliness. Married people tend to be friends with other married people.
Yes.
And then when they divorce, especially if there's some, contention in the divorce, which unfortunately is the case with
Inevitably
most.
will be, yes.
Some friends are going to choose sides. Others are going to remain neutral and sort of back off, right? And then others, although they may want to be friends and they still will be friends with the guy, it could be a third wheel situation, right?
Yes.
So for a lot of reasons, a guy's social life changes dramatically. And because of that dramatic change, that's why guys will often turn to the easy things such as alcohol, drugs, here in Las Vegas, gambling,
Yes.
strip clubs,
Yes.
or feeling they need to dive immediately back in the dating pool.
Yes.
So they go for those kind of things, and I encourage them to not do those and to work on themselves and really design that new life for themselves.
What would be the immediate thing that you would tell those looking at the remade man? Someone who's coming fresh from a divorce, and every divorce is different.
Mhm.
So what would you recommend the first thing that they do?
Well, the first thing that I discuss with them is I reframe it as, okay, it's not fun what you're going through, and there's probably some bitterness. But when I give keynote speeches,
Mhm.
one thing I say is, look, you can't get better while you're still bitter.
Mhm.
So I say, bitter or better, choose your beat.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, dang, okay.
Well, what do you recommend for men during their grieving period so that they don't become bitter? Because there has to be a grieving period.
hmm Yeah, I mean, you use the word grief when you divorce. It is a bit like loss of life. The person's not passing away, but they're no longer part of your life.
Mhm.
Although if you have kids, obviously they're still somewhat of a part of your life. But for the most part, they're not. And so, yeah, you are, despite the fact that the man may be better off now that he's divorced, there is, yeah, he did lose a person. So you're right. There is a bit of a grieving process to go through, which is fine, but there's a distinction between that and being bitter and being angry, because once the divorce is done, it's time to stop being bitter. It's time to stop placing blame,
Mhm.
and the only thing we can improve at that point is ourselves. So we should self-reflect and say, what could I have done different here? What mistakes did I make that I don't want to make next time around?
What makes you, I guess my next question would be, what makes you think that you made mistakes?
We can only really improve ourselves when we take full responsibility for our lives. And so, as much as it's easy to blame the other person, and there may be very obvious things the other person did wrong, I can certainly point to a few from my ex-wife. However, I have no control over that. So I have to think about, what part did I play in that situation or in the marriage in general, where I can do better next time around.
At what point do you stop yourself blaming and just kind of say, wish it in a cornfield, I'm on to something better?
I don't like the word blame that you just used. It's not so much blaming. It's about taking responsibility And the reason it's important is because if there were mistakes made,
Mhm.
you don't want to make the same mistakes again.
Understood.
So it's about taking responsibility.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. I'd like to thank Mr. Simkis for explanation of his podcast and his Facebook group. And please make sure you go to theremademan.com to look for more. Thank you so much and have a good evening.